If you're serious about stand-up comedy, the craft, the art form, then sit back and relax and enjoy this. Listen to this. We all know that we probably ought to be writing or something more productive to the craft than just watching YouTube videos, but maximize your time here. Get a concentrated dose of great stuff. Sit back, relax how you best see fit, and enjoy this high concentration of quality material you can take to the bank. My name's Aranor Bruce. I'm a stand-up comedian who has no works edited for YouTube yet, but several years now I've studied the art of stand-up comedy, and I've sifted through a lot of stupid shit to get some truly precious, golden, brilliant shit, which I sequenced into thematic albums or playlists. And after so many years, I'm finally sharing it in this series of videos here, which is the shit. So no need to click. Streamlined, beginning to end. Just make the time and you'll find them valuable. They're reinforcing to me wisdom from different people, mostly stand-up comedians. And the album or the video LP is peppered in images I gimped to myself. So if you watch the whole video, you will discover that it has its own flow, its own theme. Really, it's my gift to the community. As a new neighbor, it's my banana bread on your doorstep. So enjoy and feel free to comment below.
And you know, we need to be able to be horribly funny, because life is horrible, and we need to be able to allow people the freedom to find the ability to transcend that horror with comedy. And a mark of a free society is that comedians can be just exactly what they are, is which they're people who push the edge of what's acceptable. If you're a brilliant comedian, you get right to the edge, right, and you dance there. And so that's part of what's worrisome about the state of discourse in the free West. That same thing, comedians won't go to university campuses. It's the same thing, you don't get to be funny. So, and if you can't be funny, then you're not free. You know, the jester in the king's court's the only person who gets to tell the truth. And if the king is such a tyrant that he kills his jester, then you know that the evil king is in charge. And so when we can't tolerate our comedians, it's like, well, there you go. They're the canaries in the coal mine as far as I'm concerned. So people come up and they tell me some way that their house was out of order. You know, they're hopeless and nihilistic and drinking too much and watching too much pornography and procrastinating too much and being not serious with their relationship and not getting along with their parents and, you know, not formulating a vision and not growing up. And, well, you know, there's just endless ways that you can descend into a kind of, what would you call it, a kind of grungy, filthy carpet infested hell. And so, and then they say, look, I've been watching your lectures and I developed a plan for my life, and I've been trying to be more responsible, and I've been really trying to tell the truth, and I mended my relationship with my father, and I got married to my girlfriend, and now I have a flat, and I quit doing drugs, and I've just tripled my salary in the last year, and I didn't commit suicide like I was going to 6 months ago. I think I have, I don't know, out of the 150 people that I talk to each night, I would say probably over the course of the lecture series, there's probably 10 people like that a night who tell me that. And so, see, and because I believe what I said tonight, I believe that the individual is sovereign, and that individual sovereignty is the cornerstone of reality itself, and it's the cornerstone of the state, and it's the cornerstone of reality itself. I truly believe that to be the case. That every time I hear someone say, look, I've got my act together, I think that's one more weight on, you know, if the scales are always tilting towards good or towards evil, then every time someone decides to straighten themselves up, they take a major weight off the evil side and they put it on the good side, and it's not trivial. And I believe that that's what the redemption of the world depends on. It's not political. It happens at the level of the individual, just like the descent into totalitarian catastrophe occurs when people abandon their sovereign responsibility, which I think is the most accurate way of diagnosing what happened in the 20th century. So whenever someone comes up to me and says, I was not doing so well, and here's, 3 ways where I've really put my life together, we have a little 15-second party. And we both know why. And so that's as good as it gets. And so that's happening constantly. And I feel, generally speaking, that these events are like they're celebrations of that.
Irma Bombeck said that there's a thin line between laughter and pain, comedy and tragedy, and humor and hurt.
I read something when I was still a comedian in the Greenwich Village. A friend of mine, Bob Altman, he told me about Arthur Koestler's Act of Creation. And in the Act of Creation, Arthur Koestler, he showed a triptych, a 3-paneled illustration. And and there were several listings down, several listings in the vertical column, each of them. And then, of course, you could go look across from one triptych to the second to the third. And that was the progression of a creative person. And the jester was in the first triptych. And the jester is, of course, a person who makes jokes. He makes these funny jokes. But if he has ideas attached, if the jokes are built on sound ideas, if there's something philosophical in his thinking that the jokes illuminate, then he's a bit of a philosopher too. So he goes to the second part of the triptych. Jester becomes jester philosopher now. And if he does those things with marvelous language that thrills us, particularly graceful combinations of words and runs and rhythms of language, then he becomes a poet as well. And so the jester has become a philosopher poet, and he's all one. And I read that at a very young period before my development really kicked into gear. And yet somehow it stayed with me. And I think I can now do a little justice to that theory. I think I can claim to have my essay, their essays now, there are sound ideas in them. The jokes are great. I would never run from jokes. Joke. I love big jokes. I love fat jokes. I love home run jokes. And I just put in 5 or 6 more the other day in this piece that's almost finished. And I love the jokes. But the jokes are there to decorate the ideas. The ideas are about what I don't like in this country, what it is I'm sort of kind of disenchanted by in my fellow man, my fellow human, and my fellow American. So those are the ideas. But then I found that I have this ability my father had to be really good with language and to put it into kind of interesting sounding bits and snatches and runs and trills and things. And so I've kind of gotten that. I mean, I kind of have inherited that. And now I feel fully realized as a performing writer. See, I used to think of myself as a writer, as a performer who wrote his own material. I always bragged about that in interviews. I'd say, I write my own material, because a lot of comedians didn't. I'd say, I'm a comedian, but I write my own material. Now I think I'm a writer who performs his own material. I write, but I have 2 places for it, books and on stage.
Hearing you talk about, the jester, philosopher, poet, I thought of the opening monologue of one of those specials, Modern Man.
Yeah.
And it's a rap. I mean, it's a rap poem.
Yeah. It's all about language, and it's all about jargon, really. American jargon in this decade, let's call it.
Yeah.
And I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium, digital and smoke-free, a diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstructionist, politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. I'll do a short part of it for you. I've been uplinked and downloaded. I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the upside of downsizing. I know the downside of upgrading. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm new wave, but I'm old school. And my inner child is outward bound. I'm a hot-wired, heat-seeking, warm-hearted, cool customer, voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface with my database. My database is in cyberspace, so I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time, I'm radioactive. That's enough for now.
The only thing you can do is you use your best judgment, and I want to tell stories, but I love the language. I always have. I fell in love with books, with novels when I was a young guy, and I fell in love with poetry when I was in college. People like Richard Wilbur, Hart Crane, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, all these guys. The quality of the language being like something that you could eat with a spoon. And I don't aspire to be lyrical. I don't want to do that. But I want to write as well as I possibly can. I don't want to get diarrhea of the mouth. I want to keep the story rolling, but I want to do it as elegantly as I can. I think that readers sort of expect that. So, and then when the thing is done, you give it to people, and particularly an editor. And one of the things I'm asked sometimes about editing, the more successful that you get, the more important it is to listen to an editor who won't let you hang yourself in Times Square. So I try to do that, and I remember what Hemingway said, "You must kill your darlings." Well, that seems a little bit harsh. I'm not able to kill all my darlings, but I do some.
Patrice O'Neal is known for being extremely authentic and real with his material. He was able to use POV humor in a way that allowed the audience to really identify with his point of view. If you tried to analyze Patrice O'Neal's material, it would be very difficult for you to find any kind of conventional punchlines. That's because the humor comes from both your ability to empathize with a point of view, as well as his ability to reveal some kind of hidden truth using that point of view.
But, I mean, you need that offended person to be, I mean, if you need a boundary to be pushing boundaries. I mean, you need at least that one person so you're not just preaching to people.
No, I think that's a cliched, idea that stand. I don't go up there to offend people. I'm going up there to make you laugh, and I understand that now with the phones and YouTube and everything, what made people laugh regular people are so much more educated on what's funny and what's real, and they making their own videos. They make their own videos, they think it's funny, and they get trashed like a comic, and then you learn what plays. So I think you have to go up there and you have to, you got to go into original areas, and I'm never going up there to be who am I going to offend tonight? I don't look at it that way, but just how I look at things. I'm also a contrarian, so that makes it kind of easy to do that stuff. But I don't know. Just if you saw the fucking dopes that actually get offended, that come up to you after a show, it's like.
I mean, you had it with retard, where it's at some point, all right, get back to jokes. Let people, don't us also be the ones saying, well, I had it hard because of this.
Yeah.
Because they came at me after this joke. It's let them. Just go on with it.
Go on with it.
Yeah. Just ignore them.
I guess that's the key.
It's fun for promotion, but if it's a real, how dare they? It's fine. Let them.
Let them act out.
Be angry. Eleanor said this once. People walked out of my show, and I'm like, yeah, Eleanor, you're harsh. You want a couple people walking out, or it's too safe.
Right.
You need those people.
That's true.
They make the rest of the people enjoy it.
Well, I tried to not engage this for a long time, Oh, no.
Really?
For sure.
Well, you know what my dad always told me?
What?
Can't ignore a retard.
If you want a couple of examples, Steve Martin is always a fantastic example. Anti-comedy. He brought in this idea that what is not funny can actually be very hilarious. So you watch any Steve Martin, he did the exact opposite of what every other comedian was doing, except for Albert Brooks. He was doing some anti-comedy as well. Pryor, Carlin, they both did this as well. Pryor and Carlin, both early on in their career, exhibited very high levels of little c creativity. They were very good at getting laughs. However, both of those comedians went through a period of their career where they had to break away from what they were doing. They took a step back, and then when they came back onto the comedy scene, they focused here on their big C creativity. And what Pryor did was he brought these very personal stories into his comedy that had not been seen before. So now what he's done as an explorer is he's expanded our industry. Carlin did the same thing. He brought this very edgy political humor into stand-up comedy.
Can women be funny?
Will you guys just fucking grow up and just sit down and write your own horse shit and come up with it? Start your own fucking show. Have your own award show. Quit waiting around for other people to do shit for you. That's the fucking problem. If you guys had your own big club and I was standing outside of it, you'd never fucking let me in. I'd start my own shit. You guys got to start your own shit. You got brains in there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So write your own shit and quit your fucking whining. We're all eating a giant shit sandwich out here. Nobody cares. I don't care.
Absolutely, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a web person.
The fuck up. It makes no difference whether you got a dick or a twat. All right? Just do what the fuck you want to do, and hopefully people respond to it. But this fucking horseshit of quotas and all of this crap become undeniable. Well, when was the last time you went on stage and you killed so hard the person after you bombed? If you're fucking doing that on a regular basis, people are going to notice regardless of what you have between your legs.
I don't need y'all for anything.
Yeah, that's a great statement. I'm going to fuck with myself.
Yeah, I'm going to fuck myself, and I can make it happen. You know?
Yeah, I had a manager before. I don't have a manager right now, and I had a manager. And I remember one time I had this thing I was trying to do when I was traveling on the road, and I was having, and I was like, I want to shoot it and put it on a YouTube. And he's like, well, let's put it together and go out and shop it around.
Right.
So then we did that for like a year, and nobody, it was back and forth. But in the meantime, in that year, I didn't, I did it some, but I was waiting now more for these networks to decide if I was going to have an opportunity. Right. Whereas if I would have just been making it the whole time, it would have been huge, and it would have been something at the finish line. Whereas instead, I let them decide, okay, the finish line is now, and we don't want it.
You build your own thing.
Yeah.
The write a spec script idea is kind of on the right track. In other words, like say you live in New York and you want to get a job here on our show or any show that's in New York. Well, then you should be watching those shows constantly. You should be trying to write stuff that's similar to that. You should be trying to find out what the submissions for those shows are, which you can do without a manager or an agent. And you should be trying to create those submissions on your own so that you have practice, so that you can be like a Boy Scout when this stuff is when the time comes that you might have that opportunity, you're ready to do it. If you don't do those things, then it's not going to happen. Because there's too many people who want it, who are doing it,
and also,
especially now.
I think the more that you do, like the more different things that you do, whether it's stand-up or, like I was doing stand-up, I was doing stuff at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in LA and working with a bunch of different people and just trying to surround yourself with as many different funny people as you can, because then you'll also start to find your own voice and you'll find, oh, well, maybe I like satire or maybe I just love fart jokes.
Yeah, Rachel, the woman we were talking about earlier who was on the show who has since left, actually was a student of mine, took a class that I had taught on writing for the show. That was her in. I mean, she saw this as an in, but when she got to the class, if she wasn't able to do what she needed to do to get to the point where she was able to submit to the show, then she wouldn't have been able to do that. And once she submitted, what she had to go through at that point, as far as like submitting once, then submitting again, and then having to like write, watch the show, and then the next day write her own jokes, even though she just saw the jokes that we did on the show and they had to measure up to those. It really put her through the ringer, but she was prepared for it and she got it done. And that's what you have to do. You have to work way harder than we work now to get on the show.
I just, for anybody, stop making excuses.
Yeah.
It's so easy to make excuses. What you going to do? What you going to do? And that goes, I relate that to comedy. You see, you've been in the game for a long time. You see motherfuckers trying to get stage time and stuff, and they'll say, oh, yeah, but they don't really like me in that club. They don't really mess with women. And then you ask that same comic, where do you perform? I perform at this one club, it's open mic. And you say, how did you do? Oh, my set was okay. No, motherfucker, that ain't enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I tell this to all young comics. With, any doors you want open, it's going to come through the microphone.
Yeah.
When you ripping, when you're not just 50-50, I'm talking about when you demolishing everywhere, you can't be denied.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't make excuses. Make yourself undeniable. You know what I mean? Okay, I don't do 5 spots a week. I do 2. But when you do those 2 spots, kill them.
Yeah.
And those 2 spots will turn into 3 spots and 5 spots. I even use myself as an example with me in the comedy scene in California. I came up as a New York comic. When I first came here, people knew me from the Chappelle Show.
Right.
A lot of people didn't know me as a stand-up, and a lot of clubs didn't know. Oh, he's a funny dude on TV, but whatever. And I used to drive down Sunset in Hollywood, and I used to see the names up there on the marquee. Pop, 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 pop,
Yeah.
pop, 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 pop. And I'm looking at those names, and I'm not disrespecting them. I'm like this. I'm on that level.
Right.
I should be there. I'm not making excuses. I'm not going to say, fuck that. I don't want to do the work to get there. And gradually, I told myself, I want to be, when I'm in town, I want to be on every marquee. That's a test of who's popping in the city.
Yeah.
And it might not mean a lot to a lot of people, but for me, when I can drive down Sunset and I see I'm on the marquee at the store, go to the Laugh Factory, I see I'm on the marquee at the Laugh Factory. Go to the Improv, I see I'm at the marquee at the Improv. Go to Ha Ha's, which is a club a lot of people don't fuck with, but it's a great place.
Yeah.
It's a great place
It's a
to
good
work.
spot.
When you see that, you feel accomplished, and you say to yourself, I didn't make excuses, and I did what it. A couple times, like, oh, they don't want to let me on, and they let that motherfucker on.
Right.
You just take your lumps, come back the next day, and you build your shit.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying is, like, in life, period, there's no more excuses.
That's true.
Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And you look around us, we got too many examples of it.
Will you guys just fucking grow up and just sit down and write your own horse shit and come up with it? Start your own fucking show. Quit waiting around for other people to do shit for you. I'd start my own shit. You guys got to start your own shit. Become undeniable. Well, when was the last time you went on stage and you killed so hard the person after you bombed? If you're fucking doing that on a regular basis, people are going to notice regardless of what you have between your legs.
But then that's life, man. That's growing up. It's like you start to get something new in, you don't know what the fuck it is, but you don't run from that. You run towards it. And I think it's weakness and cowardice to run back to what's familiar to you all the time. And I think especially if you're going to be an artist, you got to run to what scares you. You got to run to what you don't do well. You got to run, else you're just doing the same shit over and over again. And fuck you, man. Like, you got this opportunity. You got this opportunity to be a professional fucking artist. Like, challenge yourself.
I fucking
grow.
love it now.
You know? Yeah, fuck
like,
yeah.
Now my
yeah.
dick gets hard.
That's
like,
it,
I
man.
go up there, again, I always knew, and it's dumb. I always knew from watching those stupid YouTube tapes that Leonard Skinner had something in their head. And in the documentary, they said our goal was to blow the band behind us out.
Yeah.
And that's what my goal is now. As gentlemanly as I could do, is if I'm at the Comedy Store, I'm destroying that thing. I don't care what comes out of my mouth no more.
Yeah.
I'm not politically correct at all no more. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to take you into my world. And that's what stand-up is, taking you into my world,
Seeing other comedians, I noticed early on that when there was a new hot comic they would talk about, and I hadn't seen him yet, or her in some cases, they'd say, oh, you got to see, Sam Kinison is a good example. But first I'll describe the general idea. They say, you got to see this guy. You got to see this guy. This guy's great. This boy, you got to see. Okay. So you get a little nervous about that. If you're hot and you're doing well and everything, you say, okay, yeah, he's good. Huh? Okay, well, it's good. Good. How is he go? Oh, he's going to be on. Okay, I'll watch that. So you watch, and you have one of two reactions when you watch him. Either no threat there, or I gotta get back to work. Sam Kinison was an I gotta get back to work guy. And Sam Kinison, because he raised his voice, literally, to such an extent, it taught me something at that time, and it helped fuel a slight change or a significant change in what I was doing. I said, oh, you have to raise your voice. And I meant it figuratively. He did it literally. But figuratively, the culture was getting noisy. There was a din. There was a lot of competition for people's attention. And somehow that translated to me as I have to raise the stakes a little bit. I have to raise my voice. And so that gave me a start into that period when the real growth happened, late 80s, early 90s.
Stand-ups are the person in the room. We almost get up and articulate what maybe the room is thinking or hoping, or an idea that they hadn't thought of. It's like we're very real. We have to be very rooted, which is the trouble if you get successful, because you suddenly lose a connection with people.
There's a huge challenge in not having your old act, but I think you rise to the occasion. And you don't rise to the occasion if you don't put the void there.
Right.
If you take away your old material from yourself, Like one thing I started doing when I was developing hours is I'd take my closing bit and I'd open with it.
Right.
Just to myself. Just
Right,
'cause then
right.
I have to follow my strongest bit.
That's how he got good. You see this attitude?
And then my closing
he's a
bit
tough
with
guy.
I've been watching him.
Yeah. He's a
well,
tough
because
guy.
then the end of your act cauterizes it. It gets stronger just because because you don't have a choice. You know what I mean?
Cauterizes.
So that's why I started doing that. You get rid of all your best weapons, and you have to, or else you're dead.
But don't you think
So
sometimes
it brings
that
something out?
when
of
we
you. Well, it's not about not killing. It's about doing the best show that you can do, and it's about staying at the edge of your ability, doing a better. I want to do a better show every time I'm on stage. I mean, part of it is that I want what I do to keep getting better. Unless you think you're the best comedian that ever could possibly, like you're a perfect crystalline diamond of a comedian that couldn't possibly be improved upon.
Right.
Every molecule has been compressed together to the point there's no air in it.
Right.
You're a black hole of a comic that can't. There's just no room for improvement. You folded the samurai sword 1,000 times and just can't fold anymore. No, so you got to keep trying. I mean, I think a lot of people in show business and comedy, even especially, are very lazy, and they just sort of think that you just get up there and then you wait for your manager to get you a better one, a better shot. But it's something you got to really. To me, I mean, for me, I just want to keep working at it, and it would. Yeah, I wouldn't like it if I stopped trying really hard. It isn't a neurosis like, oh, geez, I hope they like me. This is what I do. I got to do it really, really well. But I started going back out to clubs again. And then my life changed in its own way. I had kids, and I grew up also. So I just, everybody grows up at a different time.
Yeah.
I grew up when I had kids and started really thinking about stand-up. When I had kids, it made a big difference for me because when I went out to do a set, it wasn't a social event. It was until that point. You just go to the Comedy Cellar, have a falafel at the comedy table, run down and do your set, bullshit with some comics. It was a lot of wasting time.
Yeah.
And it didn't really matter how the set was. That was just the job. I'm just going to go on and do my time, tell the same jokes, maybe do one new joke. But now it's like I've got kids, and getting out of the house is a big deal. I'm going to do a set tonight, and I ain't wasting any time. I got a list of stuff I want to try. I want to make sure that this set makes me better. I started to think every set I do has to make me better comic.
All right. But I would never tell you not to do it. All I got to tell you is you can't half-ass getting into this business. All right? Or you are going to be, you think you're hating your life now? Just picture hating 5 out of every 7 days, except you're making fucking, you're making low 5 figures. And you're old now and nobody wants to fucking book you. And you don't have any wife and kids. I'm telling you. All right? I'll give you this advice. If you decide to become a fucking comedian, there's no turning back. All right? And you got to go into it. You can't even consider quitting. And it has nothing to do with fucking talent. It has to do with desire. I'm telling you. That's what I would say. So what I would do if I was you, I would keep my 6-figure job and I'd start doing some open mics. That's what I would do. All right? And if you feel in your heart as you're standing on stage that this is what the fuck you want to do with your life, I would do it in a second. Because 6 figures, 7 figures, if you're miserable, it's not going to be worth it. All right? So the best way to do it is to sign up for some open mics. All right? See how it goes and see how you feel. And like I said, if you feel like that's what you want to do, then I would work towards it. But I would not quit that 6-figure paying job. You don't just quit your fucking job. You don't. Build up your time so you can swing out of that job into some fucking paid gigs. That's how I did it. I kept my day job until I moved to New York City, and I'd saved up a bunch of money. I'd paid off all my bills. I didn't have a car payment. I had nothing, and I moved to New York, and I had a nest egg of fucking money. And yeah, I've told these stories before. I ate fucking spaghetti every goddamn night. 3 pieces of bread filled up my stomach. and I just did stand-up every night. And I just wasn't doing stand-up. I was working towards getting better at it, analyzing what I was doing wrong, and but I would never tell you to quit your job, and I would also never tell you that you can't start comedy at 30 years of age, because you can. All right? So there it is. But the ball's in your fucking court.
Okay, and then if you're a guy, there's going to be a couple of old fucking lady comics that are going to try to bang you. Stay away from them. So it's a job. Go down there and get better at it. Surround yourself with positive, motivated people that you feel are going to make it. And they're not doing this just fucking around. And you guys will all feed off of each other's drive. That's what happened to me in Boston when I started. I started with Dane and Patrice O'Neill, rest his soul. And we were down at Nick's Comedy Stop, down on Warrington Street in Boston. We were down there every fucking night, unless we had a gig elsewhere. And even then, a lot of times we would drive back in there. We were there every fucking night. I remember one of the great compliments I got when I first started out. This guy came walking in, and I was already there, writing down my jokes. And he looked at me, he said, "Dude, you are everywhere." And it's just like, yeah, I am. So that's what you got to be, dude. And you can't just do like comedy clubs. You got to do stand up anywhere you can. And as far as bombing, yes, it is part of the process. I had a paper thin skin. I was shy. I was introverted. I had all of that, and it just was fucking hot when you were bombing. It was just sucks. It just sucks in the beginning. But the same way you learn how to kill, you're going to learn how to bomb, and you're going to learn how to hold your ground, and you'll have poise while bombing. And then when you get to a really high level of bombing, you'll begin to understand if you're bombing, because if it's your fault, if it's the crowd's fault, if it's the setup, if it's half the crowd, half you, if it's 60% you, and that to me is the best thing. If you figure out it's you, then you just start making fun of yourself. If you figure out it's them, you start giving them shit, and they loosen up a little bit. If it's a little bit in the middle, you sort of make fun of yourself while you're ribbing them. You'll figure out the whole recipe to the thing.
I do notice there are shorter fuses in the audience in the Northeast. Like if you perform like in Minneapolis or something like that. The crowds are very appreciative. They're looking at you like, we're just happy you're here, and if you make them laugh on top of it, it's gravy. But if you perform like in Boston or Philadelphia or New York,
no patience.
They are great audiences, but short fuse. Like you better get your foot in the door quick, because if you don't get them laughing quick, they're gonna turn on you, and they're gonna let you know.
Any last words of advice for aspiring comedians watching this?
If it's something you want to do, man, it's in your heart, go for it. And you're going to have bad shows. Don't let that stop you. Just keep rocking and rolling.
So, like when I was a kid, when I was in college, I used to think about, I just wish I could just inherit money. I was like, I just want to be an heir. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do anything. And I remember my uncle one time, he had a really successful
scratch ticket. You thought you were all set.
He had a really successful ad agency, and I was like, just get me I'd like a job there. Could you get me a job there? He was like, nah. He was like, fight for it as a stand-up, and it'll mean so much more to you when you make it on your own.
What a cool uncle, man.
Dude, what a great guy.
Don't take no for an answer. If it's not working well that night, it's not you, it's the audience. Blame it on the audience. Because if it worked on Friday night, it ought to work on Saturday, and if it doesn't, it's their fault. It's oversimple, but you know what? It works as a formula. Just go on and do the Sunday night show and forget Saturday night. Keep kicking them in the nuts.
So you have to be careful. Sometimes you can do something and the audience groans, right? What I like to do, especially if I have a strong point of view about this subject matter, is instead of backing off of it, is I double down. I'll get on it, and I'll do this thing about priests and sexual abuse and priests. And most of the times it gets a laugh, but once in a while I get really big groans, especially in a heavily Catholic area, right? I'll get some groans. And I'll go, really? Over $1 billion in settlements and I'm the bad guy? Really? So that's the way you want to play this? So you're coming after me, the messenger, when basically the church is the guy who's fucking the kids, not me. And it's like, once you double down like that, you'll see the audience digs it, because now you're calling them out by calling out the simple truth of the situation, rather than still just trying to do your jokes. You're just being pure and honest at that point.
And humor is beneficial. It makes you happy, and it helps you cope with pain, stress, and adversity.
I think then that's when the anger and all of that stuff started to come up. And then I kind of went like this completely different person. And I really started snapping about nothing for a good 12 years. And I think, yeah, somewhere in there, I mean, maybe I was always like depressed, but I didn't realize it. I think I just didn't realize it. And somewhere along the line, you know, one of the umpteen thousand poor women that ever came across me, like one of them finally told me to go to therapy. And I went there thinking like, yeah, I'm fine, blah, 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 blah. And then you start telling story. And it was all this shit that I knew that happened, but was just hovering.
Yep.
It just sort of, it's just over here and you're just, just going around in life. And then all of a sudden when you start talking about it, you say it out loud. It's like, oh, that's a real thing. Oh, that really did happen to me. It's like, and then you start thinking like, wow, I'm pretty fucked up. And, hey, and I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm really not happy. Like, and then I really started getting conscious of what my brain was telling me. And if my brain was like a friend, I would like be like, yeah, dude, we can't do this anymore. Like, you're just bumming me out, man. I mean, Jesus Christ, do you ever see the light? The fuck, you know? So then, fortunately, I wasn't like clinically, so I didn't need any medicine. All I needed was, I just became aware of it. And I'd be like, all right, well, there's that thought. Do you want to have that thought, or you want to go to the gym? I got back into playing drums, which was a great thing. And then I just stopped giving a shit about making it in a way where I was just like, you know what, forget this. I'm just going to do what I do. Because I went through that whole period, like, you know, I know many of you guys are trying to make it out here. You just go through that period where you're just like, oh, they like guys with, you know.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
This is the next move.
Yeah. Well, talking into a microphone like feels so much better than not doing it when you have stuff bouncing around in your head. I'm sure you guys have the same condition. You know, it feels therapeutic because otherwise there's no words for it. And so to have that,
I just berate the person I live with.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more like a Red Fox routine or something. You just like.
Is your mom abusive?
I'll take getting punched in the face if you smell good and you're sexy.
Yeah. You can incorporate that at least.
Exactly.
Blow up your fist, I'm going to come.
There you go.
Was your mom physically abusive, though?
Depends. She was manic depressive schizophrenic, so it depends. To me, no, but to other people, she shot and killed her last husband. The joke I used to do is, I say last husband because you don't get another one after that. They take you out of the husband wish book at that point. But she would move into, again, the joke I would do, she would move in, whatever town my mom moved to, she would attract the alpha loser of that town. This guy was an oil rig worker, and he used to just randomly beat her. And, like, my mom was nuts, man. It's weird. It took me a long time. I did a thing called the Landmark Forum. It took me a long time to get to that place where I could just deal with, she didn't hate me. She was just nuts.
Yeah.
And my sister, Kirsten, who she had no shot at that before kid, but she tells a story about my mom. She had this puppy, and the guy didn't like the puppy, so one day the puppy disappeared. It's a horror. This is not a story I should be telling on the radio. And then, like 2 days later, the puppy shows up at the door like a horror, like a Disney movie by the guys who wrote Saw, and the puppy's like stabbed and cut up, and it dragged itself. My mom had actually, the guy hated the dog so much, my mom had actually taken it out and tried to kill it, but didn't finish. Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. It's
wow.
That's why. Thank God for stand up, because without stand up and get on stage and be able to talk about all this stuff, A, I don't have to pay a therapist, and B, it gets out. It gets out.
If you do feel it is like a really emotionally vomiting and it's
Is it
vomiting
annoying?
every night.
Is it annoying sometimes?
No, I think it's good to vomit it out, but I tend to. Then I'm almost scared of losing it sometimes. Like sometimes those crazy suicidal thoughts or those things.
But you don't want to get healthy.
You become scared of it because you're like, without this, am I not funny?
Yeah,
and it's not rational.
Oh, I'm sure without it, I'm not funny.
Yeah,
I look back, I'm like, without this nightmare and to be able to put it in joke form. The other thing is that, like, some comics would get there was this weird chapter of comedy where people would vomit it out, but there was no jokes. You know what I mean? Like guys would get up and they would just ramble their nightmare, and I'd be listening. I'm like, oh, cool, I want to hear about that. And there was no punchlines. Yeah, you have to, if you're gonna do it, you got to at least put punchlines in.
Well, you were very unique because I remember watching you, and I didn't know any comics that used, like I said, the no handheld mic, but the headset. And you're.
I don't wear a headset. Don't say it again.
Oh,
If anybody, Tony Hinchcliffe got on radio and this little pussy got up and started talking about where's the headset like a Time Life Books guy. I was like, no, I wear a lav mic. Because
lav mic, okay.
I wear a lav mic because I went through like 6 years of acting class, and Robin Williams used to wear it. And he's one of my heroes, and I can just. Here's what happens: if you're holding a mic, comics say they have and this is why I do it. There's no fourth wall. I can talk to the audience. Well, you're holding a mic. They're not holding mics. So you're different than them. No matter what happens, you're different from them. And because I'm a storyteller, what'll happen is I'm on stage with the lav, and they forget it's just a guy talking, and they start to lean in a little more. It's a much more intimate experience. That's why I do it.
Okay, yeah, I had forgotten it was. I guess it was a lot, but it still it worked because it felt very honest and it felt very personal. But it was funny. It wasn't like
was Tony Hinchcliffe trashing you for it?
Yeah, was he trashing? Because I said before a headset, but I wasn't
podcast.
trashing you. I kind of liked that you were so animated, and I hadn't seen a comedian do that before, and it was just nice to see that there were jokes with it. Because this is one of your old. This is probably again almost 15, 20 years ago. But you walk through the whole act and you talk about your mom. I didn't know your sister too.
All right, so here's what happened with Titus, and this is what I learned in the forum. Stand for something. Fucking stand for something. You know, it made me change. Like Norman Rockwell was written with this idea. God, this is going to sound so pretentious, but because the show's funny, but I have to go from a place of where am I going with it? I had that fucked up life. My mom was mentally ill, and I said, how do I make all this? I don't want to just make fun of my mom and my dad, you know, because I have a different opinion of it now because of forum. Like they gave me life, no matter how fucked up they were. I'm not here without them. I owe them everything, even no matter how fucked up they were. I owe them my life, my existence.
Yeah.
So there's nothing they could do to fuck that up unless they kill me, and then it's over anyway. So I kind of approached it from that. But Norman Rockwell was designed to cause a paradigm shift in the way people see their screwed up lives. Because dysfunctional used to be a bad word. It was almost like a mental illness. Oh, you're dysfunctional. Oh, we feel sorry for you. Yeah. I wanted to flip that. Fuck you. I can handle way more shit than you can. I've been through so much shit. My mom shot and killed a guy. I'm in. What do you want to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to upset me? So and then the second one was to make people not be afraid after 9/11. I've said I want everyone to get to this place where it's no point in being afraid. The third one was love is evil, to make sure that people had to people know that no matter how bad their relationship was, that new love is possible. The fourth one was neverlution, because neverlution was because we're this country. We're like, fuck, we got to change this country, and then I'm gonna go watch the Real Housewives of Orange County. It's called never. We're gonna talk about it. We're never gonna do it. So I kind of wanted to call people to arms about really changing the country. That was after the fucking crash, and then voice in my head was to know that no matter how bad you fucked up in life, you're not a loser. You can still do it. Because it's all my fuck ups in life. It's my worst mistakes, including losing the TV show. And then the last one, it was Angry Pursuit of Happiness. I realized that I was getting happy. And I had married this great girl, and I was like, oh shit, I had this horrible fear that my career's over.
Yeah.
Life is getting good. Oh no. And I panicked. And so I wrote this thing called Angry Pursuit of Happiness, which was about I got that life is going to end, for fucking going to end. Don't fuck around. Don't fuck around anymore. You should never have a conversation with yourself about what should I do. You know what you want to do. Listen, Bert, you know damn well that you want to do what you want to do. When you have writers come in and on your special, you have this thing in your head. You see it. I know you see it. You've done it 3 times now.
Yeah.
They bring in a team of writers who they go, that's a good idea. And then they go write what they want to do in the framework of your idea.
Do.
Right. What they want to do.
We did it.
Depends on the event. Is it a personal event, or is it a public tragedy? Like the Bill Cosby thing is a public tragedy. The Amy Schumer accusation is a public tragedy. If my mom dies, that's a personal tragedy. And I can deal with that and talk about that, make jokes about that all I want, because the audience doesn't have an emotional connection to my material necessarily. They all have experienced death at some level. Most of them have experienced death either of a friend or a family member or something like that. But when I'm talking about my personal interaction with my mom dying, my feeling when my mom dies, and I do a whole bit about my mother dying and what I went through and how I recovered, and I get a great laugh out of it, but I allow the audience to go with me on that journey to a state where I get emotional, or I get a bit misty, and then I hit them with the punchline, boom, and because I did allow it to go into sort of the dramatic turn of real emotion happening, when I do hit the punchline, they're like excited because it was so unexpected. They're like, oh, you fucker, you got us. You had us all concerned that you were, oh, is it going to be okay? And then boom, punchline. So in the personal tragedy, does it relate? You know, that's important because the audience has to relate to something. If they don't relate to the specific event, maybe they will relate to the emotion attached to the event because everybody experiences emotion. If you're going to do a public tragedy, you got to make sure you have confidence and an unwavering sense of self up there. Let me say that again. You've got to develop an unwavering sense of self on the stage to take on controversial issues like this.
Then that's when it started working because one day they was trying to write a bit about Andy Richter, the co-host, going to having a Oktoberfest, which is a German drinking day, because he's a German, and I didn't know what it was. And they told me, and I was like, everybody got a drinking day. And they was like, what? I was like, they got Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, Oktoberfest. When black people gonna have a drinking day? And they was like, man, you should write that up. And I went and wrote it, and then they was like, you're gonna perform it on the show. They was like, we're gonna open the curtains, Conan's gonna call you out, you're gonna go out, and you're gonna talk about that right there on the show. Never been done before. I'm like, okay, I did it. That's when I found kind of like my voice. I was like, okay. And then we started doing other bits and started doing that, and then it just started clicking. And next thing I know, man, we rolling. I mean, I'm rolling. Like, never been in this position ever in my life. It was phenomenal. Yeah, so I did feel the pressure, but it once I became myself, then that's when it started working. And I think other people need to realize that. I go with everybody. You have to know there is no one like you. And people forget that because they so busy trying to do what they think is expected instead of just got to give yourself. It's no one like you. It's no one like nobody. And that's the beauty that we need to embrace about ourselves.
You know, we thought you were really funny. You had the jokes. You have everything that it takes to be really successful. But we wanted you to be a little bit braver because we were like, oh, you know, this guy's going new places that we haven't heard before. Right. And then you kind of let yourself off the hook too easy because we wanted you to like, wow, we wanted to see you punch. Because, I mean, for a man to like take on gender stereotyping is big stuff. I liked it. It was original and brave. But, you know, we wanted to see you tear it down, you know. So that's our advice. Keep going, sharpen it up, toughen it up, and, you know, you're really good. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. You know, the devil makes a lot of deals, and when sometimes you sign that deal, and you're like, "That's exactly what I want," but you had no control of it anymore. I have this thing where, so Love Is Evil was one of my best specials about my divorce and about. I always try to pick something. I always say, like, Love Is Evil is about how fucked up my life was with my ex-wife, and then I met this amazing woman who I'm married now. So it was like I wanted to prove that no matter what you go through, love is possible. No matter how bad it gets, don't get bitter like my dad did. Love is possible. So I always like plan like the show's got to be about something. We shot the show. Levity did it, and they did a great job. It looks beautiful. But they owned it. They owned it for 5 years, and they sold a lot of them. And I finally actually bitched. I was like, hey, guys, you've had this for 5 years. We had a 50-50 deal on profits. They sent me, I had my lawyers have to track them down. It took them 4 months to get this paperwork. The paperwork has, they made a ton of money on it, and it says at the bottom they owe me $1.80. shelving fees, restocking fees, blah, blah, blah. And I saw the number they sold. So I'd only given them 5 years a license on it, and I took it back this year, and I'm selling it now. Every special I've kept, I have made more money doing it online on my own website than anybody has ever paid me, ever. And I got to edit them. I got to shoot them. I got to pick the theater. We made money that night. You could do it.
Slow down. You're a little on the quick side.
I get nervous and anxious, and it makes you start talking real quick.
You got to draw them in, man. Don't go super slow, but you got to just slow it down, and the crowd will go. They'll lean forward. When you're chasing them, they pull back.
And you worry. At least I have that. You worry that you're going to forget what you're going to say, or you're going to forget the order of how you have it in your head. So that makes you talk faster too, to make sure you get it out.
But he doesn't write down his jokes.
and learn your own act. That's an important component to comedy.
That seems like a pretty significant thing to be able to do.
Learn your act.
Yeah. Fritzy, you got to write it down.
I had written some notes down, but then I didn't bring it up with me onto the stage because I didn't want to feel like they would be looking at index cards instead of making eye contact with.
Do you write down everything you say word for word?
Not ultimately. At first, it's an idea, and you have you give it a beginning, middle, and an end, and then I'll try it on stage. But I tape every show, and that way, while I'm on stage, sometimes I think the best writing takes place when you're on stage, in the heat of the moment. You figure out a more concise way of getting to the point.
If you want to.
Yeah, it takes me. I'm not like some comics. Some comics can spit out an hour a year, and I don't. It takes me 3 years to write a new record. But it's good. But it takes me forever to do it. I'm just not that prolific, I guess, anymore.
That's the big debate with comedians. Like, how much time should you wait? And Tom Papa and I were just talking about it, and I've talked about it with Burr and with Louis C.K. and a bunch of different guys. And Louis is doing like one a year for a while, but he stopped doing that. And I think he kind of agrees now that when you do one a year, it's almost like it's a special full of like adolescent premises.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always found that my stuff ripens well, on the vine if I leave it there, if I pick it too early.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, development of material. Like, you're the only one who really knows when it's done. And sometimes you'll have something. I've had bits that I didn't put on specials that I was doing. I was like, this thing is it's not ready. And then maybe 2 specials later, I'll stick it in somewhere.
Right.
Number 2, a point of view. Here's what a lot of comics lack. They lack any kind of a point of view. They lack any kind of meaning. They lack any kind of a identification. Like, who are you? What are you saying that has any importance to me? Do I get to hear a unique point of view on the world? Do I get to see something that means something? A branding device, number 3. A branding device is something memorable, something unique, something that you might do that even if you don't have a refined character, sometimes a branding device helps. For example, this is one comic in a competition, the World Series of Comedy. His jokes weren't that funny, but towards the end of the act, he lifted up his rolls of fat, pulled out this disposable camera with a flash, took a picture of the audience, put the disposable camera back into his rolls of fat, tucked down his shirt, and said goodnight and walked off the stage. Now, that was a memorable little event there. The audience dug that. I thought it was a bit of a gimmick, but the audience was one voting here, and he moved on in that competition, despite the fact that his material wasn't brilliant. Preferably, I would like to have material over some sort of a device or a gag, but it still worked for him. Another thing to attach yourself to as a branding device is a persona or character. Look at Mitch Hedberg, who's kind of the stoner comedian and did observations on life. Larry the Cable Guy, Jerry Seinfeld, George Carlin. All these people have a unique point of view. Louis Black, Louis C.K., kind of a very unique persona about them. So Kevin Hart, he's kind of very energetic. Chris Rock, energetic guy, has a very pointed view on life. So he takes on the status quo. Bill Burr is the devil's advocate. always takes on the status quo and turns it around, shows his viewpoint on the status quo. So that's a bit of a character, and it's a strong, refined character, and it does make a difference at people remembering you and understanding where you're coming from. I mean, George Carlin used to open his act with,
"Why is it that most of the people who are against abortion are people you wouldn't want to fuck in the first place?"
I mean, that's a powerful opening. The audience knows where you're coming from and who you are, and you just said the first joke. They're either going to choose to stay or choose to leave. A show that I recommend everybody go see in Vegas called Absinthe. They start out with a little announcement at the beginning, and it ends with, and if you have problems with words like shit or fuck, you're at the wrong fucking show. Right away, you know what you're getting yourself into by being at that show. So that's kind of a branding device. Again, this is number 3 in the core things that should belong in every act. Some level of profundity. George Carlin said to me, we were watching some stand-up, he goes, "Man, I wish somebody would just say something that means something." Say something that means something. Have a level of profundity in your act. Say something profound. Now, it doesn't have to be a profound message. It doesn't have to be anything like that. But it says something that might make them think, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. That's so true. Jerry Seinfeld does a lot of that. That's so true. I never thought about it that way. He does this bit in a recent set he did. You know, he says, you get onto the plane so you can get off the plane. You get into the taxi so you can get out of the taxi. But you don't get in an Uber. You take the Uber. So that's a way of looking at something that maybe we've never thought of. So you go, oh, I never thought about it that way. That's so true. And that coincidental laughter trigger chimes in and makes people laugh, plus recognition. But you gave them a different way of looking at things. So that's what I mean, a level of profundity. Say something that means something. So does it make the audience think? Does it change a person's opinion?
As opposed to changing my personality, no, I don't. But of course, everything you do's got a persona. Chat shows, I'm playing a sort of character. It's not completely me. You know, I never let my guard down. I don't act when I'm on Letterman or Jon Stewart. I don't act completely like I do with my friends. You know, you still edit yourself. You still present. Stand up. It's a persona. I play a brasher, more arrogant, more confident version of myself, and then there's another level on that I usually play the guy who says the wrong thing. You know, the target of my stand-up seem like they're soft targets, but of course the target is the audience's own prejudice and middle-class angst, and me. I mean, I'm always the butt of the joke. I'm ignorant. I come down on the wrong side. A joke I do, Nelson Mandela, what a great guy, often gets a round of applause. I go, incarcerated for over 25 years, released in 1990, he's been out now for 19 years, and he hasn't reoffended. I think he's going straight, which shows you prison does work. So I always play getting it wrong, you know.
15,000 people laughing at your jokes. That's kind of an amazing feeling. But also having them sit there looking at you, listening is really great too. But I always see, I've done it 3 times now, and it was the same every time, that they're all laughing, the show's going great. But what I see are, there's at least in 15,000 people, there's like 1,000 disappointed people. There's like 1,000 people.
No.
And they're dotted. I see them all.
You see them?
I see them still today. But during the show, I see them, just guys going like,
yeah.
Those are the ones that you really see. Everyone's going, yay! And I'm just, I'm sorry, buddy.
That you're reading their disappointment accurately.
Absolutely. I'm 100% sure.
Well, I'm not sure that's true, but I share the feeling. I know that. Hell, I know it here tonight.
It's a lot of comedy, I've noticed, like where you land. You know what I mean? So when I started out, I took a comedy class, and it was like, you know, my first show, I had to bring people. So I didn't know anything about like, this is how you should do comedy. This is like the way you go about it, where you earn every comic's respect. I had no clue. I was like, let me run my own show, and this way I have more control. I give myself more stage time in front of a real audience, you know, instead of like open mics where comics are just like looking at their cell phones and they don't give a shit. They're just tuning you out.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
I mean, it's not illegal. It's not illegal.
I think
it's okay to run a room and give yourself some stage time if you ran it.
A lot of things for you to do after the show, but overall, there's a thing called club etiquette, especially nightclub etiquette. Things that you should probably do automatically anyway. Okay, like when Gayla's going to a gig and I'm with her, we're traveling from LA to like San Jose, you know, and just got in the car, send a text, you know, or if you're coming in on a plane, just got off the plane, just got you know, about an hour out, and then when she gets to the hotel, I'm here, you know, and then she shows up to the club a half an hour early, or whatever the call time is, even earlier than the call time. Okay, that gets a club owner to trust you because they need to be able to completely rely upon you. Okay, because their livelihood is on the line. So those are good things to do. Then when you get to the club, check in with the manager, whoever it is. You check in with them. You go over and go, hey, I'm here. So they just know. And then don't leave. And if you're going to leave, tell them. You know, if you go, oh, I gotta go get something, whatever it is, at the store real quick, and Gayla's oftentimes on last, so there's an hour of show going to be going on while she, you know, goes and buys something real quick that's really important. You know, oh, I gotta go down here, right here to the CVS and buy blah 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 blah, and I'll be back in a few minutes. If you know, and if there's any trouble, I'll call you. And, okay, or they'll say no, I don't want you to leave. But then they have the choice. That's the whole idea. There's a lot of staff to get to know. First of all, you know the club owner and the manager, you want them to like you and stuff and thank them. The big things are like, not necessarily the bouncers, but the door person. You want them to like you because, you know, also if there's somebody who, like a maitre d', sits everybody down, you want them to like you, so that in case your family's coming in, so you can go and say, hey, my family's coming in, you know, can you set them up near the front and save a section for me, and they'll do that. So those are the things. Okay, then there's the bartender. Bartender's big. Bartender interacts with everybody in the club. Okay, because they come to get a drink from him, and maybe et cetera, et cetera. And the bartender is in charge of the blender. He can blend that joke at between bits. Or he can do it right on the punchline. And I've seen them do it too. You sit there and wait, and the person, because of their funny part, like no laugh for the comedian, because the comedian pissed them off. Okay? And there's a lot of ways you can piss them off. One, standing at the place where the wait persons come to get the drinks and standing there and chatting with the waitresses and the waiters. No, they're at work. You know, never date a waiter or a waitress. You know, it's the old, the old saying, don't shit where you eat. You know, that's kind of the thing. Dude, don't mess that up. Just don't mess that up. You want to thank all of them and let them know you appreciate you. And, if the bartender gives you a free drink or something, go thanks and leave it. I just even get a water from the bartender when I'm over here at the Improv. I'll drop $1 just for $1, just for a drink of water. Even give me a drink of water here. That goes a long way because the club owners do, or the managers do, go to the bartenders who have to watch the show because they're going to be there the whole time. They have to watch the show and go, how'd they do? How's this person working out? Are they standing in the aisles all the time, blocking the waitresses and waiters from doing their jobs? I mean, it's crap like that can get you not to come back. Might not get you fired that week, but, don't come back. So, thanking those people, letting them know you appreciate it. A tip of this or that, or tip the front door guy. Hey, thanks for letting, my family into the front. Give them $5. Do something. Let them know you appreciate them, etc. Now, to your point here now, after the show, I might go to all the comedians, go, hey, great working with you, that's pretty good. Go to the MC and say thanks, because sometimes they're in charge of more than you think that they are. At the end of your show, thank the club. Those are kind of things at the end. And one of the things that I think people really miss a lot is go out to the lobby when people are leaving. My friends Penn and Teller. Penn is one of the best at it, and I talked to him about it because I've known him a long time. After their show at the Rio in Las Vegas, they both go out and stand in the lobby and will talk to everybody, sign everything, and very graciously give all the time. Sometimes it takes 45 minutes to an hour every single night after every single show. And I talked to Penn about it. He goes, well, those people are responsible for me having a job. Take care of those people. Okay, let them know you appreciate. Thanks, coming in, so on and so forth. I'll sign that. Yeah, that's really great. Oh yeah, I'll take a picture with you. Yeah, a lot of that, and that goes out on the internet and gives you some publicity as well. So, and then if you're really industrious, then you have little cards, little pieces of paper. People say, I want to see your next show. You give it to them with a golf pencil. And get their just get their email. You don't even have to get their name and email's okay, but at least their email. Then you go home, put it into a database. And pretty soon you're gonna, after years, pretty soon you get a lot of these names on this database at home. So every time you're performing, just quickly type up what you're doing and send it out to that whole mailing list, and you're publicizing ourselves. Gayla. We had done that for a really long time. One time she was doing something in San Francisco, and she sent it out to everybody. 5 people that had met her at another show one time showed up at that show. Okay, and it was a big audience, good audience anyway. But then they stuck around, talked to her, took pictures with her. Those are all the things that you want. You want people following you. That's the way you get a following, and that's the way you learn to get work. So that. All the other some of the other things. I'm sorry. At the end of your show, never trash the club and never trash the equipment. If the mic goes out or something like that, just put it aside, raise your voice, and tell them to. There's all this club etiquette. People think it's cool to trash the club, or trash the manager, or trash the equipment. It's just a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Take care of that club. And all the people in it. They're giving you a job. And all the people who are in the club are giving you a job. And your job is to take care of them, not just to laugh on stage. There's all these little things you can do off stage that make it really easy for the club owner or manager to have you back again.
Another World Series of Comedy event, I think, they had some really strong acts getting towards the end there in the finals. And in the last finals, the show was filled with a bunch of old people. It was like a senior citizen night. Now, that's a different audience. And if you don't adjust your act for that crowd, they're not going to laugh at your material. So they're doing a bunch of youthful, edgy jokes. If you're doing a joke about getting butt fucked while watching your Uber app, and you've got a bunch of senior citizens out there, odds are they're not going to be too comfortable just laughing out loud at your material. They're going to be really uncomfortable. So you're probably not going to make it through that round. And so the winner was Clean. He decided to do Clean, and he won. And they're like, wow, we didn't expect him to win. Well, because as a comedian, part of your job is to be able to adjust for your audience based on where you're performing. Certainly I do that when I'm performing for corporates. In clubs, I don't adjust as much, but I'll switch gears if the audience isn't buying what I'm selling. That's your craft, man. That's what you're supposed to do. But to make an excuse that rules are changed. So it was one of the things like, oh, he's supposed to be dinged on the points. Well, you don't see the tally. How do you know he wasn't dinged? Again, making up an excuse that doesn't even exist except in your own mind. There's an actress I know who used to say, I'm not getting cast because I'm too old. What are you talking about? You're either, in this business or in any business, you'll get cast for exactly what you're right for, period. If you're not right for it, you don't get cast. So to say it's because I'm too old, too young, too fat, too skinny, got a zit, whatever, is bullshit. You're cast for exactly what you're right for. And if you're a really good actor or actress, you'll be cast for not only what you're right for, but sometimes what you're not exactly right for because you're such a good actor. Now, what I would like to do real fast is talk to you about these amateur competitions. The amateur competitions don't mean much if it's what I would call a bringer amateur competition. Bringer, that's B-R-I-N-G-E-R. That means you have to invite people. You, the comedian, invites people to come to this comedy competition. And It's done by audience vote, and the audience votes on who was the best comedian. And of course, if you brought 30 people to this comedy competition, odds are you're going to win because you have the most people. Now, if you really suck and you bring 30 people, that's kind of where the X factor comes in. So the judges can make a change and not give you the award, but they're still getting the money from these people that you brought to the competition. So that's a little bit different. A lot of these bringer competitions aren't there for you to compete and win anything substantial. They're there to make the producer or the club money. So it's good to understand they're still valuable enough to get into because they still give you that experience of a competition. But the value you receive from that competition is going to be limited because it is a bringer competition and it's not a producer paid for competition. For example, like the Boston Comedy Festival, or the Big Sky Comedy Competition, or Seattle Comedy Competition, or the San Francisco Comedy Competition. All of these are legit comedy competitions in that they have a reputation and people come to see the show. And everybody has a different voting system. But I like the voting system where it's the producer-sponsored attendance because the club is promoting this competition and it fills the room, and you have judges that are judging it, and it's not just up to the audience that you may or may not have brought to the show, if that makes sense. So be careful of those. Those are they still have value to you because you get good video, you can say you won a competition, and it does bring a little bit of legitimacy, but the real legitimacy comes when you do Seattle or you do San Francisco. You do the World Series of Comedy. You do the Boston Comedy Competition. You do Big Sky's Comedy Competition. If you win those, like if you win Big Sky, you win Seattle, you win San Francisco, you win the Boston Comedy Competition, you win the World Series of Comedy Competition, you will have a manager that wants to sign you. So that's just the way it goes. And plus, World Series of Comedy, you do that comedy competition and you place in the top 3, you're getting work. You're going to be working, you might not get headlining work, but you're going to be getting work. And that feature work that you get around we're talking about 30 weeks. 30 weeks is substantial. That's a lot of work for, attending one competition. So these are very valuable things to receive from competitions. So just placing in the top 3 in San Francisco Comedy Competition will get you noticed. It's a great way to notoriety. So I take these competitions very seriously. Some people don't believe in competitions. Usually those are people that don't do well in competitions. But competitions are superbly valuable. It doesn't mean anything if you don't win or whatever. Don't let that get you down. Because your odds are you're not going to win. If you go in, there's 150 comics and or 100 comics in the competition and your odds are 100 to 1 for you to win that competition. And it's still not odds that you can't overcome. You can easily overcome those. If you're the hardest working comic and you've been working regularly and getting great laughs, you can still win that competition. But you still have the odds against you. But competitions are great to build networking, to build your circle of comedians that you know, that will help you to identify other opportunities that are available out there, plus to get you in with some other bookers, get you in with that particular club. That's another benefit to some of these amateur comedy competitions at these clubs. If you attend these regularly, you get on the owners or the bookers' regular list. You're in their head, and they'll want to bring you back for other events too, hopefully. My best advice with comedy competitions: go in, do your thing, get the feedback from the judges. One of the other things you can do is go up and ask judges individually, hey man, what notes do you have for me? Do you have any notes for me? Don't be afraid to ask for the criticism, because you'll get positivity and you'll also get some critical notes that are very important data to help you move forward and grow.
And then Letterman, you were on how many times? 25 times?
28.
28 times on Letterman.
Very, very fortunate.
Okay. How did Letterman find you?
Well, you have to audition. I auditioned not for him, but for like a show producer, and I had auditioned a few times and not gotten it. And then you audition and then they go, yeah, we think it'll work out.
Wait, you go in prior to the show or
in a comedy club?
Oh, okay.
You go in a comedy club. You don't go on a showcase, which means like a producer will come out and watch 5-6 comedians who might be.
But you know that they're coming out for you to audition for Letterman.
Correct. And then you do it. You wait to see if there's a phone call the next day. And
what was that first appearance like?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to explain the. You're talking about more nervous with Fritzy than giving out a Super Bowl trophy. The nerves when it was very funny. When you're backstage before a show like that, it's pretty intense. But that's part of the fun. To me, it's like, any golfer can make a 4-foot putt, but can you make it when you need to win the U.S. Open? It's sort of like that with comedy. It's like, well, a lot of people can be funny, but can you be funny when this curtain opens and you got to walk out and there's cameras and the whole thing? Can you do it then?
See, that's the problem. I fell for it.
Calculated.
Yeah.
You're everything you need to be to make in this business.
Yeah.
You just can't be creative and just be floating around like, oh, that tickles my artistic fantasy. You have to have a plan. But you got to leave your friends and family behind.
Yeah.
This is all these things when Oprah talks about women. Oh, you're going to do this. You do that. She leaves all that part out.
Yeah.
You're going to miss your children growing up.
Right.
You're going to get to the top of the mountain and you're going to be alone and have no real friends.
And there's a reason I never had children as Oprah. Because I didn't have time for that shit. I wanted to fucking take over the world. That's what Oprah said.
Yeah.
No,
When you're,
absolutely.
When you're swinging the sickle with both hands, I mean, you can't carry a kid.
No, I agree.
No.
Now,
So bottom line is, don't let excuses block your success. There's an old saying, you don't have to chase anybody. You just keep your head down, do the best work possible, and eventually people will chase you.
Ooh,